VCS04 Common Theories of Learning. Learning Outcome 5. Understand how the animal you are working with learns and the basic principles of reinforcement techniques. So within Learning Outcome 5 we will cover Learning Outcome 5, 5A. Outline the common theories about how dogs and cats learn to include the following. The 4 quadrants of learning theory: operant learning, classical learning and desensitisation. There are 4 quadrants related to the learning theory. Quadrant 1 is positive reinforcement. Quadrant 2 is negative punishment. Quadrant 3 is positive punishment. And Quadrant 4 is negative reinforcement. Quadrant 1, positive reinforcement. This is an event occurring or coming about as a consequence of a behaviour, thus increasing the likelihood that the behaviour being carried out again. A good example is food being provided when the dog has sat when asked to. However, only if the arrival of food increases the dog's likelihood of sitting can the food then be termed as a positive reinforcement. Quadrant 2, negative punishment. The removal of an event directly as a consequence of the pet's behaviour that will in turn decrease the likelihood of the behaviour occurring or being performed. In the case of a dog jumping up for a treat, when this is an unwanted behaviour, denying the dog the treat would be the punishment. Only if removing the food reward decreases the likelihood of the dog jumping up can it be termed negative punishment. Quadrant 3, positive punishment. Occurrence of an event as direct consequence of a behaviour that will decrease the likelihood of the behaviour being performed. Such an example is jerking on a dog's slip lead when the dog is trying to pull ahead. Only if this reduces the likelihood of the dog pulling on the lead in the future can it be termed a positive punishment. Quadrant 4, negative reinforcement, is the removal of an event or occurrence as a consequence of behaviour that increases the likelihood of the behaviour being performed. For example, the slackening of the lead, which can be done when a dog walks to heel appropriately. Only if the slackening of the lead increases the likelihood of the dog walking to heel can it be termed as a negative reinforcer. Classical learning or conditioning, named after Pavlov, who was a Russian physiologist. He found out that when a stimulus is used, in his case, the ringing of a bell that previously would not have had any significance to a dog, actually became associated with food being provided and the unconditioned response of salivation. Both the association with food and the salivation occurred equally to that of the bell being rang as to food being presented. Thus, on the ringing of the bell, the dog would link this to food being provided and would salivate in anticipation. Thus, the sound of the bell became a conditional learned stimulus, preluding the arrival of food. And in turn, it also produced a similar physiological, emotional and behavioural response as the unconditional or unlearned stimulus of food. And this excerpt can be gleaned from the BSAVA Veterinary Nursing Textbook 2007. We can consider that classical conditioning occurs regularly in a dog's daily routine, i.e. seeing the lead and making the dog excited about going for a walk, or a car engine defining that their owner has returned home. The image provided depicts in pictorial form the explanation as provided on the previous slide. Operant conditioning, a learned effect regarding the consequences of behaviour and the effect as to whether the same behaviour is performed again. Trained behaviour is consequence-led. This is what will happen after a behaviour is performed. i.e. a dog following the command sit, is not just the dog being told what to do. The dog will sit because the word and then the action of sitting will bring about a good or a desirable consequence. Desensitisation, used in behavioural management, we use the term to describe the loss of negative emotions and associated behavioural results. Thus used in treating behavioural issues that exist rather than preventing such issues occurring. So firework phobias are a common desensitisation that you might be aware of, and that is in relation to not only the sight but also the sound of them. And this is an example where desensitisation can be used in low enough intensities of the sight or sound in relation to how they will be presented in order not to produce an emotional behavioural response. The intensity is then increased very gradually in order to continue with the lack of response. Positive signs that the desensitisation has been successful is seeing no undesirable response, e.g. no undesirable behaviour in the presence of fireworks. Desensitisation is also similar to habituation, so please research the term and make a note of it. And please upload this for your veterinary educationalist to market. Research task. Speak to the team members in your practice who help to deliver puppy parties or training and find out about training information that your practice's new puppy owners are provided with. Many practices will have a behaviourist that will be involved in such sessions or staff members that have particular interests and potentially training in such areas. It's important for you as a member of the team to know who you could approach in relation to an inquiry from a client, in relation to behavioural support, as to whether you would recommend somebody in practice to speak to that owner, so such as a qualified RVN who's done some additional behaviour qualifications or work, or whether you would refer that person externally for assistance. In summary, we've outlined the common theories about how dogs and cats learn, to include the following: the 4 quadrants of learning theory, operant learning, classical learning and desensitisation.